Minsmere, the RSPB's premier reserve, and a nightingale greets a new day. But it's not just nightingales that have made the arduous journey north from Africa. It's early April now, and the thickets and reed beds are alive with migrants. Over 330 species of birds have been seen here. A greater variety of birds breed here than anywhere else in Britain, and many of them are attracted by this man-made lagoon known the world over as the Scrape. It was dug out in 1962, 15 years after the RSPB obtained the first lease of Minsmere from owners who wanted the natural wonders of the area to be shared and enjoyed by all. Hundreds of man-hours went into making a highly complex system of shallow lagoons, raised islands, and ditches that allowed precise water control. This provided a wealth of feeding and nesting habitats for a great variety of birds, and, significantly, just a year later, Avocets returned to breed on the new Scrape after an absence of 16 years. Such was the importance of this event that the RSPB decided to make the Avocet its official emblem. Work has continued over the years on expanding the Scrape to its current 40 acres, and every year now about 100 pairs of Avocets breed here. Activity starts in early April as the Avocets sort themselves out and mating follows. A suitable nest site is found on one of the Scrape's specially constructed islands. Egg-laying and incubation are soon underway all over the Scrape. The Avocets have neighbours, noisy neighbours. Black-headed gulls established themselves on the Scrape just 1 year after the Avocets began nesting here. They started with 30 pairs in that first year and have increased their numbers hugely since then. And there are many other breeders on the scrape and its surrounds. About 20 species of birds regularly nest here. But Minsmere is not just the scrape. Lying along the Suffolk coast, with the nuclear power station Sizewell watching over it from the south, and by the little villages of Eastbridge and Westleton to the west, and Dunwich Heath to the north, its 2,400 acres include a rich variety of habitats. A mile and a half of beach and dunes, grazing marshes and farmland, 450 acres of heath, interconnecting freshwater meres, about 150 acres of mature woodland, and the third largest reedbed in England. And these reedbeds are home to a bird that, until a few years ago, was as rare as avocets once were. Marsh Harriers, and in early spring the female and male go through their skydiving display. A sea mist rolls in, giving poor visibility to yachtsmen and birds alike. Rain follows, and the birds are grounded. Others that were on migration come down to feed whilst the weather is bad. Bar-tailed godwits, some in winter plumage, and some already in summer breeding colours. Dunlin and curlew sandpiper, sanderling, all using the scrape as a refuelling point on their way north. The morning after the rains, and Minsmere is still soaked. Island mere, still shrouded in mist. A juvenile hooper swan seems in no hurry to follow its parents north. A female mallard with one of the season's earliest broods. Other residents of the mere are also going about their business. and the harriers continue their courtship and check out likely nesting sites. At last, the sun breaks through, and one of Britain's rarest birds makes its entry. The bittern. Bitter bum, bog blutter, bog jumper, bottle bump, bull of the bog, all old country names for this most elusive member of the heron family. Probably becoming extinct in Britain in the late 1800s, it recovered slightly about 50 years ago and then declined again. Minsmere had just one calling male in 1991, but with careful reedbed management, their numbers are slowly coming up again, and in 2003, Minsmere had 10 nests, one female being double-brooded. And nearby, there are other fishermen about. As with the bittern, otters are on the increase thanks to cleaner rivers and reintroduction programs. And Minsmere has had breeding otters for some years now. In olden times, local people here valued the bittern for its flesh and the river dog for its fur, but those days are now long gone. To the north of the scrape, the North Wall fields support more mammals. And where there are plenty of rabbits, there will be predators. A fox with young cubs to feed is on an early morning hunt. And the grass, kept short by the rabbits, provides a good feeding ground for more birds passing through. Wheat ears, ring ouzels, wagtails, pie and yellow. And in the reed beds close by, and also to the south, the Marsh Harriers are now nest building. Their revival in numbers is, if anything, more spectacular than that of the bittern. In the 1970s, the whole British population was down to just one pair breeding here at Minsmere. Their numbers brought down by shooting and then by pesticides. But with better protection, they have made a spectacular recovery, and in 2003, Minsmere alone had 8 nests, from which 28 youngsters fledged. This male, when he's finished building this nest, will very probably start building another nest for another female that he will mate with and support in a different part of the reed bed. mid-May, and the islands on the scrape are fully occupied by nesting avocets and black-headed gulls. Most of the avocets laid their eggs in the first week of the month. In another week or so, their efforts should be rewarded. Still, the migrant waders are coming through. They seem to be in no hurry to get to their breeding grounds. The male ruff, resplendent in his finery, displays to the females in between busily feeding, but by tomorrow they will probably be gone on their way north. This sanderling's next stop could be northeast Greenland. Grey plover on its way to northern Russia. A couple of knot, going for maybe Canadian Arctic islands or northern Greenland or maybe Siberia. And turnstone, heading for northeast Canada and Greenland. A spoonbill, possibly not going too far. They are regular breeders on the continent. They last bred in Britain in the 17th century and have recently been trying again. Little egrets. They first nested in England in 1996, have increased their range since then and are now nesting close by in Suffolk. And sandwich terns, once common breeders here at Minsmere. Hopefully they'll breed here again soon. And then there are other visitors that don't stop. A red kite becoming almost a common sighting all over the country thanks to some very successful reintroduction schemes. And common buzzard. They're becoming more common these days in East Anglia. And then a rarity with a call as beautiful as its appearance. Cranes. Are these from the continent or perhaps from not far away in Norfolk, where breeding has been successful in recent years? The last week in May, and the avocets are very jumpy, being aggressive to all about them. And for good reason. The first clutch has hatched. 1, 2, 3. And the next morning, more success at another nest. 2 chicks so far, and 1 egg still to hatch. Suddenly, an adult gives a warning. The incubating bird crucially leaves the nest, and in the blink of an eye, a black-headed gull swoops in and takes one of the chicks. Just 1 chick is left now. Here it is again, slowed down. The avocet tries to chase away the gull, but the gull nips round past the avocet, dives in and takes the chick. Now they have just 1 chick and 1 unhatched egg. An adult takes away an eggshell in an attempt to make the nest less conspicuous. Maybe they'll take extra care from now on. All over the scrape, chicks are hatching out now. They're able to leave the nest just hours later. The parents don't feed them, merely leading them to the water's edge and encouraging them to find their own food. But danger is always present. A parent calls the chicks to shelter underneath her. Another warning is given, and she leaves them to chase an approaching herring gull. The gull, undeterred, strikes but misses. Here it is again. A lucky escape. There are plenty of other tempting morsels around for the big herring and blackback gulls. By now, the black-headed gulls have chicks. An immature lesser blackback gull tries a raid, but is seen off. Now, a mature, lesser blackback gull has a go. And it's successful. Many chicks of all the species nesting on the scrape suffer this way. But at least this female mallard seems to be making a very good job of looking after her brood. Other ducks show themselves from time to time. Gargany, a rare breeder here. And an American widgeon. It could have escaped from a collection over here, but equally it could have made the long flight across the Atlantic. Young birds are everywhere now, ideal food for the Marsh Harrier, and our male is constantly on the wing, a sure indication that they have young in the nest. The female returns after an unsuccessful hunt, watched by a distant hobby. The male harrier has had luck and arrives with food. He calls up the female and they make the food pass. Early June, and in the marshy fields of Minsmere, the wild flowers are at their best. On the dry heathland, the heather is in flower and attracts a variety of insects. including the silver-studded blue, both male and female. The heath has its own distinctive birds, the summer-visiting whin-chat, the partially migratory stone-chat, and the resident Dartford warbler, whose numbers are up significantly in recent years because of successive mild winters. And there is another bird typical of the habitat, the nightjar. They fly only at dusk and during the night, when moths and beetles, their main food, are active. But this one has other things on its mind tonight. The male nightjar sends out his churring call to attract a female. She hears him. She comes closer and likes what she sees. Off they fly, wing clapping as they go. The reed beds are taking on a different colour now, with all the fresh growth coming through. The female bittern leaves its youngsters to go fishing. The male takes no part in their upbringing. The sedge warbler continues his singing from dawn to dusk with only quick breaks for feeding. The bird knows about 50 different phrases and combines them in so many different ways that it's possible that from the day it's born to the day it dies, it may never sing the same song twice. That can't be said for the grasshopper warbler. One of the best places to see another of the reedbed specialists is along the walkways. Bearded tits spend their whole time in or around the reed beds, busily searching for insects and seeds. The harrier youngsters have now fledged, and their mother encourages them to test their wings. The grebes on Islandmere have their youngsters to feed, and a plentiful supply of small fish, usually rudd, entices the young great cresteds from their mobile home. On West Scrape, a spoonbill diligently feels with its beak for fish. Got one. It's a stickleback, and that, as you would guess from its name, has spines on its back and sides, so the spoonbill has to blunt them before it dares swallow its catch. The common tern has similar trouble with the sticklebacks. They usually feed their chicks with small sea fish. Little gulls stop by for a few days. They have attempted to breed in Britain, but not here. The sandwich terns are back from breeding just along the coast, and the juveniles and adults are slowly losing their immaculate black crowns. And then, quite suddenly, well before Midsummer's Day, the first of the real migrants are back. Job done. Spotted redshank females, still in perfect breeding plumage, left the breeding grounds in the low Arctic a week or so ago, leaving the males to incubate the eggs. Now they're heading south to warmer climes. Back in the 60s, these sandbanks in the middle of the reserve had their sides shaped and cut vertically, and immediately sand martins started digging their nest holes. Numbers have varied over the years because of adverse conditions in their wintering areas south of the Sahara, but for the past few years there have been about 60 pairs here. But not all these are adults bringing in food. Some are fledglings taking their first flights, and the next day dozens have taken to the wing in an excited swarm. They follow their parents down to the scrape to start hawking for insects. High summer is here. The bell heather is in full bloom. The trees that were naked in winter have taken on their full attire. Plant growth is at its peak. This is the time for butterflies. The small red-eyed damselfly, discovered in Britain in the year 2000, found at Minsmere the following year. Now it's breeding here. And then, in the second half of July, the waders return in force. Most of them in superb breeding plumage. Black-tailed godwits, dunlin, knot. Curlew sandpiper, wood sandpiper, green sandpiper. And then a visitor from North America, the pectoral sandpiper. Little stint. Spotted redshank, now in winter plumage. Ruff, still losing their summer plumage. Greenshank. Whimbrel. And grey plover. Avocets, ours as well as others from abroad, probably Holland, gather in large numbers. Terns come and go. Little terns with the commons and an immature black tern. It's late August now. The days are shortening. Duck numbers are building up. And in North Marsh, a purple heron hides away. But the autumn migration doesn't just involve water birds. Towards the southern end of Minsmere are the famous sluice bushes. Years ago there were several houses here, one serving tea to thirsty walkers. The houses are gone now, but the garden bushes remain and are a haven for passing passerines. Sedge warbler. Whitethroat. Lesser whitethroat. Reed warbler. Willow warbler. Chiffchaff. Stonechat. Goldfinches. And the occasional shrike. And every autumn, without fail, pied flycatchers find the only oak tree on this windswept coastline and plunder its wealth of insect life. Similarly, the North Wall bushes, where so many small birds bred in the spring, provide excellent cover and food for whitethroats and redstarts. Close by, in the sandy soil, a juvenile green woodpecker digs out ants. But ants don't just have woodpeckers to worry about. These holes are excavated by a fearsome predator. A wandering ant slips down the side of a hole. It tries to clamber out, but its struggles alert the owner of the hole, lurking just beneath the sand. It's an immigrant from the tropics, an antlion, first discovered in Britain in 1994, found breeding at Minsmere in 1996. It flicks sand at the ant, trying to bring the ant down to the bottom of the hole within reach. The ant struggles up the shifting sand and finally makes it out of the hole, only to fall into the next one, and this time there's no escape. The ant is gripped by the antlion's huge jaws and slowly pulled under the sand. Autumn. The leaves are turning. Blackbirds raid the berry bushes. Field fares have arrived. And in the arable fields, red deer stags roar out their challenges. Big numbers of duck are building up on the scrape and are checked out by a passing peregrine. Widgeon, teal, pintail, shoveler, shelduck. With so many waterfowl assembling in one place, there's always the possibility of a rarity or two. A red-breasted goose, but not from Siberia, surely from a wildfowl collection somewhere in Britain. And what about this? A Baikal teal, once again a popular bird in captivity. A ferruginous duck. They breed on the continent, and every year a few make the short flight across to us. And this is a good time of year for various birds of prey to arrive, a short-eared owl, an habitual daytime hunter. A long-eared owl, waiting for the end of the day. And a hen harrier, which will probably stay in the area for the whole winter. Bearded tits have changed their diet from insects to seeds and feed off the reed heads. Gulls move around our coastline, an Iceland gull and a yellow-legged gull. On Islandmere, a family of Buick swans, having kept together as a unit on their long flight from Siberia, stay that way. And golden eyes from Arctic Europe. December, and the reeds have lost the vibrant green of fresh growth and have taken on the colour of ripe cornfields. Every winter, when water levels are low, areas of reed beds are carefully managed. Channels are cut to provide more areas deep in the reed beds for fish to swim into, and so provide more suitable places for bitterns to feed. And the policy is paying off. Bittern numbers are up, and anyone spending a day at Minsmere has a good chance of seeing one. Bird movements continue throughout the winter, and offshore a variety visit or pass through. Great crested grebe. Hawks like this guillemot. And divers, sometimes in considerable numbers. Up to 2,000 red-throated divers have been seen in one day. The sluice outflow provides food for several species. Turnstones, and purple sandpiper. In the dunes close by, there is often a snow bunting searching for seeds and other vegetable food. It's a clear night. It's January, and in the morning, the scrape is frozen. The temperature is still below freezing, and in the clear winter air, finches raid the alder trees for seeds. Siskins. Redpolls. And goldfinches. The sun warms the scrape and duck move around to find open water. Ice makes feeding difficult, but the thaw is beginning. Smew have called in to sample the sticklebacks. And down on the levels, overlooked by the 12th century ruins of old Leicester Abbey, are the grass-eaters. Widgeon, white fronts, and occasionally bean geese. A good blow out at sea brings birds in closer. Cormorants struggle into a headwind fishing for sprats. Following then come mergansers, shelduck and teal, widgeon and pintail, and eiders. The sprats are driven inshore, and the gulls are waiting for them, snatching them off the surface. Food is hard to come by in these winter months, and to help woodland birds through this difficult period, the RSPB at its canopy hide puts out a good supply of peanuts, and the birds flock in. The common blue tit, great tit, and coal tits. Chaffinches, and greenfinches. Then the rarer marsh tit. The woodpeckers, a female great-spotted, the male great-spotted. And then the much rarer lesser spotted, which quickly gives way to the returning great spotted. Work by the RSPB staff and volunteers continues. One of the birds the RSPB specifically wants to help is the nightjar, and so these silver birches are being felled to give more open habitat that these birds like. Nightjar numbers are up. There were 22 pairs in 2003. This clearance should encourage more. Minsmere has a big team of permanent staff and volunteers, and work goes on throughout the year looking after and improving Minsmere for birds. It's February now. Birdsong is increasing. The alder and hazel catkins burst forth. The mayflowers seem to have got it wrong by about 3 months, and deep in the woodland the woodpeckers send out that marvellous reverberating signal. The male starts, then listens for a reply. And returns it. And the female replies again. Daffodils push up through the leaf litter. The primroses are well ahead. On the scrape, the black-headed gulls are gaining their dark heads. Mediterranean gulls display. The Avocets are back and sorting themselves out. It's St. Valentine's Day, and the bitterns are flying in pairs. The peacock and comma emerge from their winter hiding places and soak up the sun. The woodlark sings high in the sky. And the first spring migrant arrives, a wheatear, fresh in from Africa. And then the sand martins, twittering and cavorting and immediately checking the sandpit. Soon the bushes and reed beds will be alive with the songs of the rest of the migrants, and the Minsmere year will start again.